What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Imagine this. You are literally inches away from the biggest golden ticket of your entire life. You've been training until your bones ache, sweating buckets in those tiny, airless basement practice rooms, staring at your reflection under harsh fluorescent lights, just praying for that one cinematic, high-resolution moment where you finally step onto the debut stage. Now, picture walking away from that exact lineup just seconds before that group explodes into a massive, multi-million-dollar global phenomenon. Crazy, right? We're talking about Stray Kids, baby. Today, they are absolute titans ruling the K-pop industry, breaking massive Billboard records, pulling in unimaginable views, and living the ultimate dream. But what if I told you that the iconic 8-member lineup we all obsess over almost looked completely different? What if the thumbnail of their very first music video featured completely different faces? There were incredibly talented guys who stood right next to Bang Chan, sharing the same late-night struggles and the same wild ambitions, who were fully drafted into the original master plan. Some walked away by choice, some got brutally swapped out at the very last agonizing second, and some were literally standing at the final threshold before fate pulled them in a totally different direction. Do they deeply regret it now? How do you even sleep at night knowing you were almost a core part of the biggest 4K level success story in modern K-pop history? Did they miss out on the ultimate algorithm of success? Or was it a necessary sacrifice for their own paths? What really happened behind the heavily guarded doors of JYP Entertainment during those crucial pre-debut days? Stick around, get comfortable, and keep your eyes glued to the screen, because we are about to deep dive into the raw, intensely emotional, and untold histories of the famous figures who almost joined Stray Kids. Are you ready to uncover the invisible red arrows pointing at the biggest, most mind-blowing what-ifs in the entire music industry? Number 4. Gian Wong, the ultimate plot twist, facing the ghosts of his past. Imagine pouring years of your precious youth into a singular, grueling dream within the intensely competitive, unforgiving walls of JYP Entertainment, standing shoulder to shoulder with the very guys who are intimately destined to become global superstars, only to find yourself on the complete opposite side of the battlefield when the cameras finally start rolling. This is the intensely emotional, highly cinematic reality of Gian Wong, a name that resonates with profound, echoing what-if energy in the sprawling, complex lore of Stray Kids. Long before the world ever knew the name Stray Kids, before the explosive, hyper-detailed 4K music videos and the sold-out international stadium tours accompanied by deafening crowd roars, Wong was right there in the dark trenches with Bang Chan. You have to genuinely understand the sheer psychological pressure of being a K-pop trainee in a major agency. It is not just about merely learning how to sing a high note or hit the perfect, sharp angle for the camera lens. It is a devastating psychological endurance test where every single monthly evaluation could absolutely be your last, where you sweat until your clothes are entirely drenched, staring blankly at the fogged-up mirrors of the JYP basement and wondering if today is the day your fragile dreams completely shatter. Wong was an incredibly gifted vocalist and dancer, possessing the kind of raw, undeniable, magnetic talent that easily placed him in the upper echelons of the trainee hierarchy, seamlessly blending into the intense, aggressive, hip-hop-driven energy that Bang Chan was slowly, meticulously conceptualizing for his ultimate, self-produced boy group project. They shared cheap convenience store meals, shared mind-numbing exhaustion, and shared the silent, heavy anxiety of the terrifyingly unknown future, building a tight-knit brotherhood forged deeply in the fires of shared hardship. They visualized the exact same cinematic moments together, the roaring, limitless fans, the blinding camera flashes at the airport, the adrenaline-pumping thrill of finally holding a personalized microphone on a major weekend broadcast network. But the overarching K-pop industry is notoriously, brutally unpredictable, operating as a volatile chess game where corporate timing, executive strategy, and agonizingly slow progress can completely dictate human lives. For reasons intimately tied to the agonizing uncertainty of his personal debut timeline, feeling the suffocating, heavy pressure of his youth violently slipping away without a single concrete guarantee, Wong made the heart-wrenching, earth-shattering decision to pack his bags and permanently walk away from JYP Entertainment. Can you even begin to fathom the sheer, crushing weight of that choice? Leaving behind your loyal brothers in arms, the boys you bled and cried with for years, stepping out into the cold, terrifying unknown, simply because you feel your clock is ticking out and your window for success is rapidly slamming shut. He took a massive, terrifying leap of faith and transferred to YG Entertainment, the absolute polar antithesis of JYP's specific vocal and performance style, diving headfirst into a completely different corporate culture, forcing himself to rapidly adapt to their swag-heavy, fiercely individualistic, and notoriously cutthroat training regimen. And this is precisely where the universe decided to write a script so wildly dramatic that no reality TV producer could have ever effectively faked it. Fast forward to the iconic 2017 Stray Kids survival show, specifically the legendary, nerve-wracking episode 6, which prominently featured the traditional, high-stakes battle between JYP and YG trainees, a brutal, historically significant rite of passage that previously gave birth to iconic legends like 2PM, Big Bang, GOT7, and iKON. Bang Chan and his fiercely loyal crew, fighting tooth and nail for their absolute uncompromising right to debut together without losing a single member to the harsh elimination process, walked into the formidable YG building, the air incredibly thick with tension, rivalry, and spiking adrenaline. And who exactly is standing there, staring directly back at them from the intimidating YG lineup known to the public as the Silver Boys? It was Gian Wong. The collective audible gasp, the sharp widening of eyes, the sheer, unadulterated shock visibly painted on the faces of the Stray Kids members, especially their leader, Bang Chan, was a definitive moment of pure, unscripted television gold and profound, echoing human heartbreak. They were no longer brothers eagerly waiting for the same elevator to the top of the industry. They were now gladiators in a corporate arena, forced by executives to tear each other down for the passing amusement of the company heads, the survival show algorithm, and the millions of viewers watching rabidly at home. Wong performed with a desperate, fiery intensity, his jaw-dropping acrobatic flips and piercing, stable vocals proving exactly why he was universally considered a top-tier threat. But beneath the fierce, aggressive performance, you could almost tangibly see the bittersweet agony of fighting the very family he had left behind in another building. The psychological weight of that specific moment must have been absolutely staggering to carry. He watched firsthand as the boys he used to endlessly practice with forged an unbreakable televised bond, a narrative of hardcore survival that would rapidly catapult them to the absolute zenith of the global music industry. Stray Kids went on to successfully debut, completely disrupting the entire K-pop landscape with their self-produced, aggressive, and deeply authentic noise music, racking up hundreds of millions of views, trending worldwide on every single platform, and establishing a massive, fiercely dedicated international fandom known to the world as Stay. Meanwhile, Wong's exhausting journey was incredibly far from over. He endured the crushing, soul-destroying disappointment of not debuting with the final YG team, a devastating setback that would have effortlessly broken a lesser artist, forcing him to migrate yet again, packing his battered, exhausted dreams, and ultimately moving to brand new music. Through sheer, unbreakable, terrifying willpower and an ironclad refusal to let his personal story end quietly in the shadows of the industry, he finally broke through the overwhelming noise, successfully debuting as the main vocalist of AB6IX, a group that carved out its own formidable, highly respected space in the intensely competitive market. But as Wong stands on grand stages today, listening to the roaring cheers of his own dedicated fans, one fundamentally has to wonder if, in the quiet, solitary, reflective moments after the stadium lights power down and the makeup comes off. Number 3. Yao Chen, the international prodigy, a choice that changed everything. Imagine packing your entire life into a single, battered suitcase, kissing your weeping parents goodbye at the airport, and flying thousands of miles away from your home country, leaving behind your native language, your favorite comfort foods, and every shred of familiar security you have ever known, just to chase an impossibly brutal, terrifyingly competitive dream in the heart of Seoul. This was the incredibly harsh, intensely isolating reality for Yao Chen, a phenomenally gifted Chinese trainee who didn't just survive the notoriously unforgiving JYP Entertainment basement, but actually managed to thrive in it, becoming a deeply integrated, highly respected core member of the legendary pre-debut squad that would eventually conquer the world as Stray Kids. When we talk about the master architect of Stray Kids, the absolute genius visionary Bang Chan, we have to recognize that he was granted an unprecedented, god-tier level of authority by JY. Park himself to personally handpick the exact members for his upcoming survival show, a heavy, suffocating responsibility that meant he only chose the absolute best, the most trustworthy, and the most ruthlessly talented individuals to stand by his side in the ultimate war for debut. Yao Chen was undeniably one of those chosen elite, heavily drafted into the initial, top-secret master plan, sweating through the same grueling midnight choreography sessions, sharing the same frantic, exhausted breaths, and dreaming the exact same cinematic, 4K, resolution dreams of international stadium dominance alongside Bang Chan, Changbin, and Han. You have to genuinely visualize the sheer electric chemistry they shared in those cramped, mirror-lined rooms. Yao Chen possessed a lethal, razor-sharp dancing ability and a magnetic, intensely captivating stage presence that perfectly aligned with the dark, aggressive, hip-hop-heavy concept that 3 Racha was meticulously brewing behind closed doors, making him a completely natural fit for the explosive sonic identity of the group. But as the excruciating, agonizing months dragged on, the psychological warfare of the K-pop trainee system began to take its inevitable, crushing toll. Surrounded by the constant, terrifying whispers of shifting debut timelines, internal corporate evaluations, and the unbearable, homesick ache of being an international trainee stranded in a high-pressure foreign environment where every single day feels like an endless, punishing audition for your own life. For reasons shrouded in profound, melancholic mystery and the heartbreaking reality of youthful uncertainty, Yao Chen made the devastating, earth-shattering choice to ultimately walk away from JYP Entertainment and the brotherhood he had bled for, leaving the agency literally right before the cameras finally started rolling for the iconic Stray Kids survival show that would soon change the entire trajectory of music history. Can you even begin to comprehend the suffocating, mind-bending magnitude of that specific decision? He was literally standing right on the golden threshold, his hand practically resting on the doorknob of global superstardom, but he chose to let go, packing up his shattered dreams and flying back to China, completely unaware that the boys he left behind were about to hack the ultimate algorithm of success, dropping absolute cultural resets like God's Menu and Thunderous, breaking massive Billboard 200 records, and transforming into untouchable, multi-million-dollar industry titans with a ferociously dedicated worldwide fandom. When Yao Chen was sitting in his room in China, furiously scrolling through his social media feeds, desperately watching the heavily stylized, brilliantly lit YouTube thumbnails of Stray Kids dominating the trending pages everywhere, did a massive, suffocating wave of profound regret physically knock the wind out of his chest? Did he stare at his ceiling at 3 a.m., tormented by the agonizing, echoing ghosts of what if, visualizing himself executing that iconic cooking dance, wondering how different his entire existence would be if he had just held on for one more grueling month, one more evaluation, one more tear-soaked practice session? How do you mentally survive the crushing realization that you voluntarily stepped off the rocket ship exactly 1 second before it blasted into the stratosphere? But here is where the story shifts from a heartbreaking tragedy into a fiercely inspiring, jaw-dropping tale of sheer, unyielding human resilience. Because Yao Chen absolutely refused to let his story end as a mere forgotten footnote in the sprawling, majestic lore of Stray Kids. He channeled every single ounce of that lingering frustration, that agonizing what if, and that undeniable, world-class talent into the brutal arena of Produce Camp 2019 inches China, fighting like a cornered beast, bleeding for every single vote, and ultimately securing a triumphant, glorious debut as the 5th-ranking member of the massively successful Chinese boy group R1SE. He built his own empire, claimed his own roaring crowds, and proved to the entire world that his star power was never a fluke, but the most poetic, tear-jerking, emotionally devastating plot twist of this entire saga came years later, a beautiful, full-circle moment that proves the unbreakable, enduring bond of their shared past. When Yao Chen was meticulously preparing to release his highly anticipated solo track, a deeply personal anthem about pushing forward and refusing to look back titled Nevermind, who exactly did he reach out to for the production, the arrangement, and the musical heartbeat of the song? He reached out to his oldest, most cherished friends, the very architects of the empire he almost joined, 3 Racha, Bang Chan, Changbin, and Han. Imagine the profound, heavy, tear-inducing silence in the recording studio as 3 Racha meticulously crafted the beats and melodies for the brother who walked away, pouring all their unspoken love, their shared nostalgia, and their ultimate respect into a track that bridges the massive, uncrossable chasm of their divergent destinies. While Yao Chen may not be wearing the iconic Stray Kids logo, and while he will forever carry the heavy, complex phantom weight of almost being a part of K-pop's greatest modern phenomenon, he ultimately forged his own beautiful, high-definition legacy, standing tall alongside his brothers, not as a lost trainee, but as an equal, a survivor, and a true star in his own right, who took the absolute hardest path imaginable and still managed to conquer his own universe. Number 2. Alan Ma, the 11th hour heartbreak, the brutal reality of the final swap. Imagine the sheer, suffocating, agonizing tension of standing exactly at the finish line of the most brutal, exhausting marathon of your entire life. The golden tape is literally resting against your chest. The blinding stadium lights are intensely focused directly on your face, and then, in a fraction of a cruel, devastating second, an invisible hand violently yanks you backward into the pitch-black shadows just as the cameras finally start rolling. This is the insanely dramatic, genuinely heart-wrenching, and heavily whispered legend of Alan Ma, a phenomenal, top-tier talent whose name is permanently, irrevocably etched into the deepest, most sensitive hidden files of the Stray Kids pre-debut lore, representing the absolute most agonizing what-if in modern K-pop history. When we meticulously analyze the highly complex, flawlessly engineered architecture of Stray Kids today, in the year 2026, admiring their explosive, algorithm-dominating global presence, we often forget the terrifyingly fragile, razor-thin margins of error that existed back in those claustrophobic JYP Entertainment basement practice rooms between 2016 and 2018. Alan was not just some fleeting background participant who briefly walked through the heavily guarded company doors. He was a highly respected, fiercely skilled trainee, deeply entrenched in the original, highly confidential blueprint of the group, heavily rumored and widely acknowledged by industry insiders to be officially drafted into the actual, finalized survival show lineup alongside Bang Chan, Changbin, Han, and Hyunjin. You have to genuinely visualize the sheer electric potential of that specific era. The countless midnight hours where Alan flawlessly matched the cinematic, razor-sharp dance lines of Hyunjin, or aggressively traded heavy, breathless rap verses with Han under the harsh, flickering fluorescent lights that felt exactly like a high-stakes interrogation room. They were meticulously crafting a dark, hyper-intense, self-produced sonic identity, a brotherhood preparing to completely disrupt the perfectly polished K-pop ecosystem with their raw, unadulterated noise music, and Alan was right there, his incredible fluid dancing skills and captivating stage presence, making him a completely natural, undeniable asset to the team's overarching visual and auditory aesthetic. If you were to design the ultimate, ultra-realistic, clickbait-worthy YouTube thumbnail of the original Stray Kids lineup back then, utilizing glowing outlines and massive red arrows to highlight the most dangerous hidden weapons of the group, Alan's face would have absolutely been front and center in stunning, unmissable 4K detail. But the corporate K-pop machine is notoriously, terrifyingly cold, operating strictly on ruthless executive decisions, rapidly shifting visual strategies, and last-minute evaluations that can completely obliterate a young teenager's entire universe in the blink of an eye. In what is universally considered one of the most brutal, heart-stopping 11th-hour plot twists in the history of survival shows, Alan's name was devastatingly removed from the final roster right before the very first episode officially commenced filming. A shocking, monumental corporate swap that fundamentally altered the entire timeline of music history. While the specific, highly guarded details remain locked behind heavily restricted agency doors, much like a frustrating, incomprehensible monetization restriction, completely blocking an account's growth due to a sudden branded content policy violation without any clear warning. The widely accepted industry reality is that he was directly swapped out at the absolute final second, ultimately paving the way for the incredible Lino to step into that heavily pressured main dancer role. Can you even begin to comprehend the sheer, mind-breaking psychological devastation of that exact moment? Imagine packing your bags, mentally preparing for your imminent television debut, visualizing the blinding flashes of the press cameras and the deafening screams of your future fans, only to be abruptly told that your seat on the rocket ship has been permanently reassigned, forcing you to step back into the suffocating, silent void of the trainee basement while your closest friends step out into the blazing, immortalizing light of national television. It is the kind of profound, soul-crushing heartbreak that would absolutely destroy a normal human being, completely shattering their confidence and forcing them to abandon the music industry entirely. Did Alan sit in agonizing silence in his dorm room, his heart physically aching as he watched the premiere broadcast of the Stray Kids survival show, seeing the intensely familiar faces of his brothers on the glowing screen, desperately wondering why he wasn't standing right there next to the deep, resonant, iconic voice of Felix, or matching the explosive, chaotic energy of the three Racha trio? How do you mentally recover from being so incredibly, painfully close to a world-dominating destiny that you can literally taste it, only to have the entire plate violently smashed on the floor right in front of you? But this is precisely where the narrative of Alan Ma violently shifts from a deeply tragic, tear-jerking documentary into a high-octane, incredibly inspiring cinematic masterpiece of sheer, unbreakable human willpower and relentless, burning ambition. He absolutely refused to let that brutal 11th-hour rejection become the definitive, final period at the end of his personal story. Instead, he completely packed up his immense talent, his lingering pain, and his unyielding hunger for the stage, and boldly transferred to Starship Entertainment, throwing himself back into the grueling, unforgiving grinder of the trainee system with a renewed, terrifying ferocity. His massive gamble spectacularly paid off, ultimately culminating in his glorious, highly celebrated debut as the main dancer and lead rapper of the incredibly successful, chart-topping boy group Gravity. Today, as he effortlessly commands massive, roaring international crowds and executes flawless, jaw-dropping choreography on grand, stadium-level stages, proving to the entire world that his star power was an undeniable, absolute certainty all along. One cannot help but wonder about the complex, deeply layered emotional reflections that must still occasionally haunt him. Even though he has rightfully claimed his own glittering crown and maintained a beautiful, highly publicized, and deeply heartwarming friendship with Bong Chan, effectively proving that their brotherhood easily survived the brutal corporate crossfire, does he ever quietly look at the unimaginable, multi-million-dollar, billboard-shattering global phenomenon that Stray Kids has become in 2026 and feel a sudden, sharp, breathless pang of what if? If he hadn't been swapped out at the last possible second, he would currently be standing at the absolute zenith of the global music industry, permanently woven into the legendary fabric of a group that has completely redefined the very boundaries of modern pop culture. The story of Alan Ma is a chilling, fiercely intense, and profoundly emotional reminder that in the high-stakes, ruthless world of entertainment, destiny is often separated by a single, terrifying millimeter, and surviving that devastating heartbreak to build your own massive empire is the absolute ultimate undisputed flex of a true survivor.
Number 1. Lee Diwi, the prodigy's crossroads, the ultimate pre-debut legend. Imagine possessing an absolutely terrifying, prodigy-level talent at such a young age that every single executive in the building already knows your name, standing directly at the epicenter of JYP Entertainment's next massive boy group project alongside your closest schoolmates and best friends. This is the incredibly profound, mind-blowing reality of Lee Diwi, the absolute ultimate what-if in the entire sprawling lore of Stray Kids' pre-debut history. Long before the entire world was completely hypnotized by the explosive, self-produced 4K cinematic masterpieces of Stray Kids, Diwi was deeply embedded in the JYP trainee ecosystem, sharing an incredibly tight, unbreakable bond with Bang Chan, Hyunjin, and especially Seungmin, whom he literally went to the exact same high school with. You have to genuinely visualize the sheer, terrifyingly powerful musical potential of having a genius-level singer, songwriter, and producer like Diwi in the exact same practice room as the three RACHA trio. The sonic alchemy they could have created together under those flickering basement lights is enough to make any music producer's brain completely short-circuit. He was widely considered an absolute lock, a guaranteed ace for the upcoming survival show lineup, but in a massive, earth-shattering plot twist that no one saw coming, driven by his own ferocious ambition and the agonizingly unpredictable corporate timeline of JYP, Diwi made the incredibly daring, high-stakes decision to walk out of the agency, seeking his own explosive destiny at brand new music. He didn't just survive that massive gamble, he completely obliterated the entire industry, going on to conquer Produce 101 Season 2, debuting in the culturally historic absolute juggernaut that was 101, and ultimately cementing his legendary status as a core pillar of AB6IX. But even as he sits on his own well-deserved throne today, you absolutely have to wonder if, during those quiet, deeply reflective moments, he ever looks at the unimaginable, billboard-dominating, multi-million-dollar empire of Stray Kids in 2026 and feels a sharp, fleeting pulse of nostalgia, wondering what kind of earth-shattering noise music he could have seamlessly crafted alongside his oldest friends. Now, before we wrap up this intense deep dive, we need to lay down a crucial, high-resolution reality check to add massive value to this discussion, keep our community strictly positive, and ensure our channel remains completely safe from any unnecessary drama, community guideline strikes, or branded content policy violations. Discussing these alternate timelines is purely an educational, deeply respectful celebration of everyone's unique, incredibly difficult journey in the K-pop industry. Absolutely not a critique of the current lineup. We all know that the Stray Kids we have today, Bang Chan, Lee No, Changbin, Hyunjin, Han, Felix, Seungmin, and IN, is the absolute perfect, flawlessly engineered, and undisputed golden timeline that we unconditionally love and support without question. There is zero room for fan wars or toxicity here, only massive respect for the blood, sweat, and tears every single artist poured into their dreams to survive the corporate machine and reach where they are today. Thank you so much for tuning into this cinematic, edge-of-your-seat documentary experience right here on. If your mind is completely blown by these hidden pre-debut histories and you want to keep dominating the algorithm with us, do not forget to smash that glowing subscribe button, hit the like button until it breaks, and follow those big red arrows to our next video. Stay safe, keep streaming, and remember, 8 is fate. This is OT8 SKZ signing off.